Love in the dust, a cowboy's heart stolen by a bandit's kiss. The sun hung low over the arid plains of Redstone Valley, painting the horizon in hues of gold and crimson. Dust swirled around the hooves of a lone rider, Caleb Hart, a cowboy with a reputation for a quick draw and a quicker temper. His weathered hat shaded eyes that had seen too much, cattle drives, barroom brawls, and the fleeting shadows of a life spent chasing freedom. At 28, Caleb was a man of the land, his heart tethered to the open range. But fate, like a wild mustang, had a way of bucking even the steadiest rider. In the lawless town of Dustfall, where saloons buzzed with whiskey-soaked laughter and the air smelled of gunpowder, Caleb rode in to resupply. His saddlebags were light, his coin pouch lighter, and his mood sour after a failed cattle deal. The Rusty Spur Saloon was his first stop, its creaky sign swaying in the dry wind. Inside, the usual crowd of drifters and gamblers filled the smoky air with noise. Caleb leaned against the bar, nursing a shot of rye, when the doors swung open with a bang. She strode in like a storm, Lila Black Rose Moreno, the most notorious bandit this side of the Rio Grande. Her dark hair spilled from under a wide-brimmed hat, and her leather duster swept the floor. Twin revolvers hung low on her hips, glinting with menace. Whispers followed her. She was wanted in 3 territories for stagecoach robberies and a daring train heist. But it wasn't her guns that stopped Caleb's breath, it was her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, yet soft with something unspoken. "Whiskey," Lila demanded, her voice cutting through the din. The barkeep obliged, trembling. She tossed a coin on the counter and scanned the room, her gaze locking onto Caleb. He didn't flinch, though his pulse quickened. She sauntered over, boots thudding on the warped floorboards, and leaned close enough for him to catch the scent of sage and gun oil. "You're Caleb Hart," she said, "not a question. Heard you're good with a gun. Ever thought of ridin' with a crew?" Caleb smirked, tipping his hat. "I ride alone, ma'am. Don't much care for outlaws." Her lips curled, a spark of amusement in her eyes. "Pity. A man like you could do more than herd cows." She downed her whiskey and left, but not before brushing his arm, a touch that lingered like a brand. Days passed, but Lila haunted Caleb's thoughts. He'd heard tales of her, how she'd robbed a stagecoach to feed a starving settlement, how she'd outshot a posse and vanished into the desert. She was trouble, no doubt, but trouble had a way of calling to him. When word spread that Black Rose and her gang were planning to hit a payroll stagecoach headed for Dustfall, Caleb saw his chance. Not to stop her, but to understand her. He tracked her to a canyon hideout under a blood-red moon. The camp was quiet, save for the crackle of a fire and the low hum of her gang plotting their next move. Caleb crept closer, but a twig snapped under his boot. In an instant, Lila's revolver was trained on him, her silhouette deadly against the firelight. "You got a death wish, cowboy?" she called, voice steady. "Reckon I just wanted a word," Caleb replied, stepping into the light, hands raised. Her gang tensed, but she waved them off. "Speak, then," she said, holstering her gun but keeping her eyes on him. He told her he'd heard of the payroll job and wanted in, not for the money, but for her. The words spilled out before he could stop them, raw and reckless. Her laugh was sharp, but her gaze softened. "You're a fool, Caleb Hart," she said, stepping close. "But a brave one." She kissed him then, fierce and fleeting, like a spark in a dust storm. It was a bandit's kiss, wild and untamed, and it stole his heart clean away. From that night, Caleb was hers, riding with her gang, learning the rhythm of her world, danger, loyalty, and a code that defied the law but not the heart. Their days were a blur of heists and narrow escapes. Lila taught him the art of the ambush, how to read the land like a map of secrets. In stolen moments, they shared stories under starlit skies, her childhood in a border town, his dreams of a ranch that had never come to be. Love grew in the dust, fierce and fragile, a flame that burned despite the odds. But the law was closing in. Sheriff Amos Kane, a grizzled man with a vendetta against Black Rose, tracked them relentlessly. He'd lost his brother to her gang years ago and swore she'd hang. When a tip led him to their camp, the ambush was brutal. Bullets tore through the night, and Caleb took a slug to the shoulder shielding Lila. She dragged him to safety, her hands trembling as she bandaged his wound. "You're a damn fool," she whispered, tears cutting tracks through the grime on her face. "For you?" "Always," he rasped, managing a grin. They fled deeper into the desert, the gang scattered, the law hot on their trail. Lila's bravado faltered, she spoke of turning herself in to save him. Caleb wouldn't hear it. "We ride together, or not at all," he vowed. In a ghost town abandoned to the sands, they made their stand. Lila rigged traps with the cunning of a fox, and Caleb's aim was true. When Kane's posse rode in, they fought like cornered wolves, back to back, hearts pounding as one. The battle was chaos, dust and blood mingling in the air. Caleb gunned down 2 deputies, Lila outwitted Kane's flank. But numbers were against them. As dawn broke, Kane had them pinned in a crumbling saloon. Lila's ammo was low, Caleb's wound slowing him. It was then she turned to him, her eyes fierce with love. "Run, Caleb." "Live," she urged, pressing her revolver into his hand. "Not without you," he said, pulling her close. Their kiss was desperate, a promise sealed in the face of death. The standoff ended when Lila tossed a dynamite stick from their last heist, collapsing the saloon's porch and giving them a chance to bolt. They rode hard, horses foaming, until the desert swallowed their trail. Kane's posse fell back, too battered to pursue. Weeks later, in a quiet valley far from Dustfall,